Hi, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Stand Up to Parent and Grandparent Alienation. Today we're talking about the laws for grandparents' rights across Canada. And we'll start with British Columbia. British Columbia promotes mediation rather than a lengthy court battle in order for grandparents to obtain access to their grandchildren. In Alberta, if families are intact, there's a two-step process that grandparents need to go through. If there's a breakdown in the family unit, for example, like a divorce or the death of a child, a grandparent can apply for a contact order through the courts. Manitoba laws take on a different form of access for grandparents. The New Brunswick law specifies what should be in the best interest of the child. The Nova Scotia law says that grandparents must apply for leave from the courts before they can file for access. The Newfoundland laws, grandparents can sue for access and also the right for information on their grandchildren, like their health, their education, and their general welfare. Prince Edward Island, grandparents are not specifically mentioned in the law. However, they can sue for access, determining on the best interest of the child. Saskatchewan, there's no mention of grandparents in the law there either, but family members are advised to try to resolve their differences without going to court. Yukon Territories has a lengthy process and it is quite detailed for grandparents. And also with the Yukon Territories, they detail what actually is in the best interest of the child. The Northwest Territories follow different statutes and their way is different from the rest of the country. In December of 2016, an amendment was done to Bill 34 in Ontario. And Bill 34 included grandparents in the right to file for access for their grandchildren. But as many grandparents are discovering after a lengthy court battle, is that Bill 34 really is not doing the job that it was intended to do. With many grandparents not having success in the court system and going through thousands and thousands of dollars in order to gain a little bit of access with their grandchild, whether it's supervised visits, unsupervised visits, or very short limited visits. All they're asking for is a little bit of time, and Bill 34 is not helping with that. With the Quebec laws, Quebec seems to have the best protection for grandparents, as their law states that no child without grave reason can deny access to a grandparent for their grandchildren for any reason, and the onus lies on the parents to prove to the courts without a reasonable doubt that grandparents are not safe to be around their grandchildren. And this is the type of law that we need to have all across Canada. This is the type of law that we want to get into effect everywhere for all grandparents that are affected by alienation. I have a 20-year-old daughter. She started becoming a victim of alienation at the age of 12. She was severely alienated against me at the hands of her father. She has become extremely abusive. I describe my situation as the poster children for alienation because the effects and the damage of all the studies that have been done on alienation is exactly how my daughter has turned out because of alienation. I don't consider my daughter a bad person. I don't hold any grudges against her. I actually consider her a victim just as myself because it started at a very young age and she had no control over it. And she was turned to hate her mother. And this is something that the courts seem like they condone, that is acceptable behavior. Not just the courts, but CAS as well. CAS does condone this behavior. CAS is also culpable with helping destroy families and separating them because they are not teaching children how to be respectful to their parents. They are not getting children the help that they need. Once you age out of the system, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to help your child anymore. Your hands are tied. There's just no hope. Once my child became 20 years old, the damage that's been done to her is now irreversible. Irreversible. I don't feel like I can reach her anymore at all. She's just like a hollow shell. There's no emotion. There's no feelings, nothing. She's a child that couldn't care less if her mother was dead or not. And this is what the courts believe is acceptable and in the best interest of a child. Now, when I started going through this at 12 years old, when she was 12 years old, I did not understand what the effects of alienation were. I definitely understand it now because I've been suffering through this for quite a few years. And now it's time to stand up and make sure that nobody else has to go through it. And I feel like I'm going through this because I'm meant to be a teaching tool. And I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. I don't consider myself a victim to my daughter's abuse because I will not be a victim to anybody. My daughter has done these things in front of CAS as well. And CAS's comments to her, or comments to me, were she has strong opinions. She has strong opinions. Instead of encouraging her and saying you shouldn't speak to your mother like that, you should have more respect for her, they say she has strong opinions and don't say any different about it. When she posts bad things about me on Facebook, saying that my mother is acting crazy and this and that, the alienators in her life actually condone that. They actually continue to bribe her and pay for her way and give her things in order to have her keep on escalating her abuse against me. Her father pays for her rent. Other alienators in her life pays for her groceries, her food, her cell phone bill. This child does not have to work a day in her life because everybody's supporting her in order to have her keep being abusive to me. This is a horrible epidemic. If it wasn't a problem, we wouldn't need so many support groups helping grandparents get through this type of situation, and parents as well. I run a very successful group on Facebook called Alienated Parents and Grandparents Peer Support Group in Canada. I started this group because I started out as an alienated parent. Now I am an alienated grandparent. I am no longer sitting back and letting the system do the job that it's supposed to do. I have been lied about, my reputation is at stake, and this isn't only about the protection of our children, it's about our reputation as well. Especially when one person who becomes so good at manipulation is able to twist stories to suit themselves with every situation that they are in. Alienation needs to stop. That's what's in the best interest of our grandchildren. How is it in the best interest of a child to be in a home where people are brainwashing him, telling him that his grandparents didn't want nothing to do with him, telling him that his grandparents are crazy people, that his grandparents didn't love him? How is that in the best interest of our children? I'm confused, and many other people are confused. And not only with the support groups that we have on alienation, but look across the board of Facebook. How many groups there are to stop CAS from destroying families. CAS has a motto statement on their website saying that they try to reunify families and bring families back together. No, they don't. Their mission statement does not apply to their actions, and their actions need to be accounted for. They don't try to mend families. If they tried to mend families back together, they would suggest that a whole family unit who is having issues surrounding a grandchild should all seek counseling together in order to fix it. That would be the best interest of the child. It's not in the best interest of a child to be growing up in a home full of drugs, in a home full of abuse, in a home full of violence. Those things are not in the best interest of a child. And I'm not saying this is part of my story, but this is a part of everybody's story. Because these are the things that had happened. And sometimes when I think about it logically, I think maybe the alienator figures that the grandparents know too much about their lives, that they feel like if they disqualify them out of their life, then there's nothing that they can do or see that is dangerous to their grandchild whatsoever. So they won't be able to go around and telling people or sharing their story. When I became an alienated grandmother, I was not an alienated grandmother by my own daughter. My daughter was not present at the time I was told that I was never going to see my grandson again, unless it was under strict supervision and strict guidelines by the CAS. And this came from a person who was not at an authority, and even this person even said in court that they were not under the authority to make that decision. Well, then how was the decision made, considering that my daughter, who does not even have custody of her own child because of her behavior, was able to make the decision to keep me away from my grandson and deny me access to him, again based on hearsay information, and she did not even hear the other side of the story? How does one person become such a manipulator that they are able to alienate and break apart an entire family unit? They have learned the tricks of the trade along the way, and especially if they are working with a more experienced alienator, then they will be able to figure out ways to manipulate everybody. Another word that I continue to hear about grandparents is toxic. Well, the true meaning of toxic is a narcissist, somebody who's developed narcissistic personalities, and that's what happens with an alienator. They develop narcissistic personalities because every story that they tell is a new story, but to them they believe it. Even though it's a different story than they told the last time, they actually believe everything that they are saying. And you have to ask yourself, if a person is so susceptible to that manipulation without hearing another side of a story, what kind of mental issues did that person have that they are so easily susceptible to hearsay information instead of listening to both sides of the story? And that's where it becomes bullying. The bullying seems to escalate. We teach our children when they are young not to bully people at school. We try to teach them how to not be a bully and how to stand up to bullying while they are in school. But what happens when you are a parent who is severely bullied by your child? The system doesn't step up. Who stands up to help you stop the bullying? Who helps you stop the bashing of yourself? You are all responsible for yourself as an adult. There's nobody to help you. If CAS is so good and so savory, why do we have to have so many support groups trying to stop CAS and make them take accountability for their behavior, because all they do is lie and don't tell the truth about many different topics and aspects? So that's a little bit about our laws, about other different types of alienators that can become involved. And our next topic, I'm going to give you an inside look at alienation. Some of the abuse, some of the effects that I've had to endure while I was going through alienation and while I'm still being an alienated parent and grandparent. So tune into my next episode for an inside look into grandparent alienation. As part of our advocacy for this month, I have written our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau a letter explaining the details and the damage of alienation. And I've also given him an inside look into alienation. In order to change the laws, everybody needs to stand up and write your Prime Minister, your President, your MPPs, and we need to make a change. The only one who's really suffering here are our children and our grandchildren. So together we can end this fight. Help me stand up to parent and grandparent alienation. Thank you, and we'll see you on my next episode.